Ramya Jirasinghe. Thank you for coming to my Atramadhyava channel. And today, you're still in the series I am doing about the environment, which is a very short series based on what happened to Sri Lanka in 2025 November, when we had unprecedented floods. Unprecedented in the sense that there were parts of our land that we lost, which we never thought we will lose. The landslides were very unexpected in some places. And what bothered me then is that this might not be a one-off thing. This might be the first of many disasters that might follow, simply because Sri Lankans, like the rest of the world, we have not been paying attention to some of the environmental factors we should have been paying attention to decades ago, right? So, not just in Sri Lanka, but globally, people are living a lifestyle that really cannot be maintained if we also want to protect the planet Earth. And in this series, I spoke with doctors who were involved with people in the camps. I spoke with philosophers. I spoke with architects. I spoke with town planners. And then I thought, apart from all that, there's another group of people who are actually helping in raising awareness of this issue through art, right? And when I say art, there's literature, there's painting. I mean, many factors of it through drama. And I picked you for the literature and specifically poetry, Ramya, because for me, you're not just contained to this particular subject. I find you an extremely good poet and you write in English, and your poetry has always touched me. I mean, now you are my friend, but even before I knew you as a poet. And I have found you to be one of the best we have in this country. You're also one of the most silent. So, not many people know that you write so well, though I think all the poets do and all the people in literature do. And so, though I am actually bringing you into the series on the environment, I also want to touch upon you as a poet, apart from this theme, and we will start there. Now, Ramya, first question I have for you is that I read your latest book of poetry, which is Requisites, right? And this is inherently about the link between all beings, the earth, and what we are doing to it, what we should do, should we want to try and find an answer to what's happening. Um, we'll come to that later, but can I first ask you, as an artist, as a poet, we have this the two sides of it. Should art be for a cause, for a reason, or should art be for art's sake, right? And I am asking you today because I brought you into a particular issue. So, where do you stand, Ramya? Can art be for art's sake ever? Where is your positioning within that dichotomy?
Thank you, Madhu, for inviting me to this series. I feel really honored to be part of a series where uh, renowned people, academic scholars, and activists have been part of. It's a difficult question, of course. I mean, it's a question that has bothered people, and many people have tried to answer. My take on this is that everything we do is political. Even not doing something is ultimately a political statement that comes from some place of conditioning that the individual has been through, So for this reason, for me, I think it's almost a moot point really, because everything we do is political. So when we write as artists or create as artists, we come from a position, knowingly or unknowingly. I hope that answers the question.
It does. So, what you're saying is, even though the artist may believe he's just working for art, it has no choice but be political as well. That you really can't separate the two.
Absolutely, because artist, especially if the artist's work is out there, is engaging with a system of some sort, right? at least at the most basic level, in the production and consumption system, sort of economic system of creation and purchasing, right? So that alone is a statement, because you are contributing to some sort of transaction, and that transaction is dependent on a lot of things. So yes, my answer is yes. Madhu, you're muted.
I also particularly believe in that not only do we inherently does it happen, but some of us may actually want to give a message out there. And this, I have read all your books, and this is the first one. I think I spoke at this as well. This is the last one. We'll start from here, Ramya, because here the requisites, and the requisites are very specifically, the requisites a Buddhist monk is allowed to carry when they go through their journey of going away from lay life. And in Sinhala, we say that pirikara, 8 things. And I found this poetry book beautifully positioned using the structure of Buddhism as the movement forward. For example, even your contents page, it's divided into the 8 things that the monks carry, and each section has about 3 or 4 poetry. So how did you come to the choice of this particular structure to hang your poetry on in this book?
I've been very interested in all the kind of debates and searches, really, that different people, academics, scientists, activists, have been making to create a more sustainable world. I've been very interested in this concept of degrowth. And I was then thinking, is there a way we could go back to the philosophy or the teachings of the Buddha, which hangs on the concept of renunciation? But of course, at its most intense point is the renunciation of lay life. But instead of going that far, I was wondering whether you could take that framework and see how a journey in a contemporary world would evolve through those items. So I took the items, and I really didn't, while I do mention the Buddha as the starting point, then the journey begins without him. And the person journeying tries to make sense of life or a way of life using those 8 frameworks. A bowl for food, a robe, a cloth, a coverlet, a strainer, things like that, a belt.
It's amazing, Ramya, because so far I have interviewed the people that I mentioned, all of them, maybe not Dr. Nuwan Totavata, because I was asking very specific medical, psychological questions from him. But everyone else, Dr. Sunil Vijayasirivardhana, Professor Nihal Pereira, Situmini Ratanamallu, who's an architect, they naturally spoke about Buddhism, and specifically this concept of alpecha, not needing so much, not needing to consume so much, as being one answer that we have to this overburdened earth, where through use we also accumulate waste, right? And we accumulate whatever the cars are putting out on in the air of the planet. For example, you can just look at Delhi, our neighboring country, to see that now the air is dark, right? And we see it, but there's a selective blindness in all of us that we keep going, we keep maintaining that lifestyle. So one of the things that makes you very pertinent to this discussion about the environment is how modern life actually encourages us to do the opposite what our religion has told us to do. Where do we, as post-colonial subjects, locate ourselves in knowing what we do and seeing what we are meant to, how we are meant to behave in a modern world which defines success in particular ways? How do we handle that dichotomy, Ramya?
No, that's the dilemma, no? Modern life and contemporary living. I think it's easy to tell people to live sustainable lives. It's harder to live it. Even I can't live. I'm not living that way. The way I would love to live, as I have kind of journeyed through in the book. I've done it on paper, but I have not done it in my life. So it's not easy. It's easier said than done. And I feel, yes, the pressures are there, marketing, consumption, production, and all that is playing a huge role. And the world will collapse without that system. I mean, that system is what everything hangs on, right? Livelihoods, sustenance, survival. At the end of the day, is now hanging on that economic system. So I think unless we go back to sort of a new ideology of living outside a political ideology, it will be difficult to sustain a concept or a lifestyle of trying to live with less, you know? And where does that ideology, what is that ideology that we should turn to or we should try to bring into our lives was what I was grappling with. And I felt as I journeyed through in the book itself, although I used the 8 requisites, I didn't bring the Buddha's philosophy into the poems until towards the end, I realized that is the answer. There is an answer there, and that answer is in its concept of right intention. It's ultimately right intention. And without basing our actions in that right intention, I think it will be very difficult for even for me to kind of live the life I would like to live, because the pressures are too strong,
You know,
Madhu, you're muted again.
it's beautiful the way you have laid out in the very first poem, Ramya, and it's very stark in saying, okay, this is what is needed, and we know that a Buddhist monk has Atta 8 things, and you lay it out. You know, they travel light. 8 requisites strung on the body: an outer robe, an inner robe, a cloak for winter, a bowl for food, a razor, needle and thread, a water strainer, a belt. Right? And you're suddenly startled when you come into this book in the very first poem. You're suddenly startled to see how life has been stripped bare, and we are told that's enough for a life, right? And that's the first you get started quite a lot in this book, and you realize, okay, those 8 things are what the Buddha has said is necessary for a monk. And then everything we surround ourselves with, right? And you look at it, and if you think hard about it, you wonder, like why. Now personally, you told me just now that not something that we can do, but I guess we can do it for an extent. For example, I know that, I hoard books. You can see behind me books. But I know, Ramya, you read and you let go of books. I know because I've got those books behind me as well. So, there's a limit to which all of us are willing to draw the line and say enough, right? And just looking at this, now look at this needle and thread. We hardly use needle and thread now, because if something tears, we might throw it away. We might not actually darn clothes, right? So we are moving ahead at quite a speed. And then the moment you throw away something, you buy a new one. So why, like at what level could we have drawn the line, and what level don't we draw the line, and is it changing within our lifetime, Ramya? Because I think just 3 generations difference, we are seeing how fast we don't believe in recycle, reuse, except as very, fancy buzzwords. Needle and thread. Shall we get there?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this lifestyle, we are not very far from that lifestyle. Our parents lived this lifestyle. My mother could dance perfectly so well, you couldn't see that there had been a tear, We used to use the newspaper in the shops, and sugar and flour. I can remember the gold gutters, I
We
think
actually use
recycling was part
newspaper.
of our culture.
Yes, we use newspaper cones and not the plastic, the
Yeah.
wrapper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the banana leaf or whatever. So we, unlike in Europe or whatever, where they moved further earlier than us, in our case, this is in our lifetime, these things were very much alive, this way of living. So I think it's easier for our generation to kind of take a slight step and say, actually, I can do these things instead of that because we've done it ourselves. It's the next generation that will probably struggle, our children, because they have not seen this.
In fact, you say there's a poem here where you say our children will ask us a question and we won't be able to answer it. And you use the metaphor of a mango tree and the plucking of mangoes and us waiting in the baskets. And then a child might ask something about our journey, and you speak and say we cannot answer. We'll hold the answer like a dying man holds something. Even the boots he won't use, right? So you are actually hinting about that too, our responsibility to our future generations, and we don't have answers to give them about what we have done to this earth.
And also about a lifestyle we did not show them is also possible. I think that is the real responsibility we have forsaken. We have maybe pushed our children to kind of imitate certain ways of being instead of showing actually while doing that you can also have a different ethos. It doesn't mean that you don't achieve things and you don't succeed in life and all that, but can we do that in a more compassionate way towards ourselves and to the planet, you know in a more thoughtful way, thought through way? And I think those questions we have not really given our children, kind of discussed with our children as a kind of a mass. Individuals might be doing that, but as a culturally at a mass level, our systems do not kind of prepare children with those possibilities. We don't offer them those possibilities.
Right. Ramya, and the one of the things I would like to talk about is your comment on modern life, right? Um, I'm going to finally end this series by discussing Amitav Ghosh's book, The Great Derangement, where he says one day people are going to look back at us and ask, were you all deranged that you didn't see what was going on? Were you all deranged? And he says, the great derangement, we all are. There's a selective blindness where we are not facing the truths that are staring at us like in our face, except like in conditions of ditva, when we realize that no, this is something that was unexpected because we were not looking at it. We didn't see this coming, right? In the great derangement, what they are, Pradeep, I'm on record, please. Sorry, we have workers painting rooms up there and everybody forgets. Um, so one of the things he says is what modernity forces on us, right, is a lifestyle that really cannot be sustained by everybody in the planet. The secret that modernity didn't tell us, right, was that this lifestyle is only limited to maybe the smallest majority of the earth for it to be sustainable. But then all Asia, everybody, Africa, we also took it from the center. So this is the way we should live. This is what success means. Everybody should have a vehicle, whatever, right? So the tribal knowledge, which actually warned us against that, was considered very backward, very tribal, so to say. So one of the things he says is our lack of knowing or seeing what was happening because we are selectively blind, right? And one thing that I will read one poem here. I couldn't do this in Sinhala because I find it difficult to translate your poetry because it's so exquisite. And also, Ramya, your words. There are instances when I am desperately Googling for meaning, right? I still haven't figured out what our Ouroboros mean. Fine. But I will read this. Oh, you want to tell me what that means, Ramya?
It's an ancient symbol, Madhu, of a snake eating its tail,
Right,
Ouroboros.
right. So, see, that kind of language use I find very, very powerful and very attractive, because anything that pushes us beyond our boundaries, I find very attractive. Okay, so let me read that. Ouroboros. Because we did not end this overflowing of plates or those penthouses that dangled millionaires suspended in midair as shanty towns sprawled at our doors, we found ourselves scrambling into fountains, trying to wave the burning forest away with flaps of cardboard. It did not work, we know. We who fled to our country homes looking for cool springs. It could not work, we realized. The tail meets the head sooner or later. So this richness, this lifestyle of millionaires. I mean, I don't know whether it's just gossip, but they say Taylor Swift actually uses a private jet to visit the boyfriend and come back. One person, one jet. So imagine the price paid by everybody for the consumption of that kind of the fuel and the carbon monoxide or whatever, I don't know what the carbon emissions that holds. So this lifestyle we see, but we still might go and have a country house. And when the forests are burning, we will use cardboard in trying to stop it, and it's not going to work. So this kind of disparity that we see, that we accept, and we still take as a marker of success, right? And as you say, that the head and the tail, we are bound to meet. So, what is your comment on that kind of lifestyle, which we consider a mark of success?
That poem is not really a comment on a particular lifestyle of some of a group of people. It's actually more comment on the inherent disparities of economic society, of the societies, economic disparities, right? That you get anywhere. More in some countries, less in others. Where I mean, Scandinavian countries, I think the disparity is much less. South Asian countries, probably much more. I think it's really less about a comment on a particular way of life, but it's more about how collectively we have come to a place where no one in the end can escape the the impact of environmental disasters. So the cardboard, I use the word cardboard to say that ultimately when nature strikes, even the most powerful, the most equipped is helpless. They're just slapping cardboard at fire, you know. And we saw that with Ditwa. Where could you run? All 25 districts were affected, no? In the end, something a little bit stronger, everyone, I mean, 10% of our population had their houses damaged. That's a big number, you know, in terms of a national statistics. So ultimately, I think it means that we have come to a stage where we've created a lifestyle and a world, a modern world, where when nature strikes back and it collapses, it will take everything down, everyone down as well.
I guess we realize our smallness, our minuteness, only when we see the environment, like as it is, and that's a very disturbing thing, because we tend to over glamorize what human beings are without realizing we are just a speck in the universe, part of a network, and just part of a network. And that becomes clear only when something like this happens, right? So, Rami, I was thinking, yes, you're right. It's not about a specific group of people, but everything you say, I have seen penthouses, I've seen skyscrapers in areas which have a lot of very poor houses right around it. It's happening in Colombo and the suburbs. So your metaphors are also very local. And I have seen that, as you say, it's a symbolic of maybe a particular, a lifestyle. Another thing I have seen in you, Ramya, is that your love for the earth. I've seen the love for Sri Lanka, but I'll come there later. This journey that these people make, right? And you have said we are trying to be different, we are trying to go upstream. Upstream is because that metaphor is we are trying to do something difficult because the natural inclination is to go downstream. It's easy, you go with the flow. But you all are trying to, I say you all are because you have said there are six people going upstream. It's a combined thing, right? So for me, now normally when you talk about renunciation of lay life, we tend to think, okay, he was sad about life or heartbreak or whatever, right? But for me, the utter joy that you inhabit further you go, right, is very heartening because you see, you talk about even the razor physically cutting ties, right? But it's not despair or sadness that drives you, but a deep joy. How are you looking at it that way?
I think because ultimately, as we keep shedding things, there is a sense of freedom. I mean, if when you try to do it, I mean, when you feel that you can live with your doors open, you don't have to worry about being, robbed or mobbed or, there is an immense sense of freedom. And that is unmatched, You sleep without any fear of anyone attacking you for what you possess, material things. And that is freeing. And I think that is part of the journey, when you set that intention for kind of letting go, what happens is at the start, it's a theory, and you're trying to live a theory or practice something. And then, but as you keep practicing it, what naturally would happen is you see the liberating, the happiness that it brings to you. And that is and without that, of course, no one will take that journey in the end, right? Someone has to go further and say, this is actually worth it. And then others follow. And we have seen that, right?
Absolutely. And you keep referring to light, Ramya. Keep referring to light, even human beings, even the shape of the beloved, as a concentration of light, which I love the. I mean, I agree with that, at some level that we are all compressed light finally. And when we go back, it's just, into one particular energy. And that kind of it's connected to love as well. This is the thing. Your book of poetry is about giving up, but it's also about further into togetherness. You're doing it together, and you keep talking about us, two of us. This is where we meet. This is where we realize that we need to go, right? So strangely, you have put two conflicting things together. Yes, it's about renunciation. It's about letting go of everything that's unnecessary, but it's also finding yourselves, and you don't do it alone, you do it in a combined fashion, right? Why is it that
Because
normally
you
this
can't do
kind
it
of
alone.
journey, sorry?
You can't do it alone, no, Madhu? You can't do it alone. And even if you look at the Buddha system of the renunciant, was supposed to always come to the village and collect the alms. He made sure that there was never a tie. That's why the Buddha never allowed people to farm, the priests to farm. They could not grow their own food. They had to, because human beings need to be connected to each other. You cannot live like an island on your own, isolated somewhere. You cannot function like that. It's about then being able to function as a whole in harmony with nature, in kind of with a gentleness that you can bring to the world and to people around you.
Yes. And with the love of people, you go to the love of the earth, Ramya, because there are many instances where you talk about cool rivers, dark caves, flowering vines, green buds. And you keep saying the more we shed the material stuff, we might enter into another world which was existent before, where these were available to us. Is it an idealized picture, Ramya? But do you think we can actually get there one day?
I don't think it's an idealized picture, Madhu. I think there's an inherent need for us to be in nature. I mean, that is why when people are ill, they are supposed to walk in, they are supposed to walk in gardens. The Japanese have forest bathing because there is some element in that that's healing. And why is that? Because we are interconnected. There's a primal connection with the earth. And I think a lot of this, I mean, scientists have recognized this, is our kind of disconnection with that, you know? And so we need that. And I don't think connecting to nature is, in a way, a choice even. For our own welfare, our physical and especially mental welfare, we need open spaces. We need to connect to those wild spaces.
What's happening in cities now, Ramya? Like, do we have those? Yes, again, is that a privilege question? Who has gardens? Like, does Colombo have garden? Like, for example, your neighborhood, what's happening there?
Yeah, I think it's all about this, but you spoke to a town planner before this, right? So he would have had answers. I mean, I think part of it is, of course, the value of land and all that, of course, but and jobs and another part of it is also our lifestyles alone. I mean, if you go out, if in the into the town, into the city, everyone paves their garden now. They put concrete bricks. We don't even walk on the earth. We don't let our souls touch the earth. That is one level. And also, I mean, I know people living in low income houses who are living on the railway track lines, close to the railway tracks, who were moved by the government and then put into apartment, high level flats, you know, and those people hate it. They can't plant anything. And I met someone recently who was bemoaning the fact that he couldn't grow anything. You know, he had no place to grow anything. He couldn't walk a dog because they used to love animals. So we have also destroyed the lifestyles through our policies, inevitably, because the land in Colombo is supposed to be one of the most, if not one of the most expensive uh, land areas for people to purchase land in the world, more expensive than even places like Hong Kong and whatever, you know. So I guess part of it is policy, part of it is market forces, demand and supply, part of it is our own choices. I mean, we can, with if we can, of course, as you say, it is privilege, right? If you have a plot of land or if you're living in a plot of land, you can make those choices, but some people can't. Like the people who've been moved out of their low income houses,
Exactly.
they've
And
been moved out of them.
I was thinking of you, like we had this appointment at 4 for our conversation. You call me at 4 to say, hold on a bit, I'm going to get late. There's a talagoya under my table. And I was like, how very like you, Ramya. I was like, here you are talking about interconnectedness, but I didn't expect a talagoya to be under your table. So what's going on? And I can imagine you very gently putting it out because I know you as somebody who doesn't even slap a mosquito, right? So how are you handling this kind of thing? What does it do to you?
I'm not that advanced. Madhu, I was standing on a chair and screaming for it to leave the house. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, our whole neighborhood, everyone's kind of paved their garden. So there is no place for these talagoyas, the garden monitor, to even lay eggs. So they're all in our garden. So we have babies and mothers and fathers and young couples, and they're all in the garden.
Okay, so
On
that makes me freak out. You know what I mean, Ramya. So how do we handle that? Like how does life as a human being become possible with an attitude such as yours?
I mean, we can give them room as much as we can, right? I mean, I've given them enough room in the garden. So in the afternoon, when I go to the garden, I had to look around because there's one running this way, one running that way. But when they also come into the house, I also struggle with it. But I think as much as possible, we have to give them because they're also trying to adapt. They live in the ceiling now, you know, and they can climb onto the roof. I've seen them. I watch them every day coming down the guava tree from the roof, very carefully going down. So what do we do? I mean, they're also trying to adjust. We are also trying to adjust. Some of us, I guess, will try to be a lot more accommodating than others, you know, and hopefully that group of people who are trying to be more accommodating will increase, or at least they'll keep this place a little bit more saner and
The
more
conversation we
natural.
had about your refusal to get pesticide people to deal with your termite problem. You said it's because we have broken the food system that naturally prevails among all beings, that we are facing some of these problems. Do you want to elaborate on that, Ramya?
So, well, I mean, yes. So, for anyone who hasn't listened to the Sinhala version of this, so I have a problem with termites who attacked my roof and gone everywhere, and the only solution is termite treatment, which I absolutely refuse to do, which means I have rafters falling on people's heads. And so I had to send some person up to check what other rafters have become, because they eat inside, no? So you can't see whether they're, and then the whole thing collapses. What to do? I mean, there's absolutely no solution. I spoke to a professor who is trying, apparently there are certain worms, nematodes that kind of control them. But I think the easiest solution is apparently black ants are one of the ways that termites are kept in check. And, we don't like ants, and even ants, right? Most people will wash their house with tiled floors with pine
Exactly.
and all that. Yeah. And we are destroying, we are breaking a natural cycle. And so nature's way of containing any species from kind of taking over is gone. And then we have problems like this because one keeps the other in check, and now we've broken that.
And once we have broken it, there's nothing else to do but keep destroying further
Yes.
and further.
Yeah, that's the
Keep
sad thing.
our Yes. I find your position quite extreme, Ramya, but I know that's you, right? Because
I might have to give in the end. I just don't know what the solution is. I
it is like
tried 5 years ago by putting salt to kind of create a barrier, but it didn't work. I mean, the thing is, termites have survived for apparently millions of years, and they will survive long after we are gone. That's the nature of this whole thing, and we have to understand that.
very interesting, Ramya, that now this is we didn't discuss this in Sinhala, but I remember I think it was Alice Walker. She has spoken about, I think it's termite, about ant hills. There's a whole lot we don't know about life, and we think we are the kings of the planet, but honestly I don't think so. There are very quiet beings who are
Oh,
much more powerful and underground, a lot that's happening.
oh.
So
They can, I mean, just dissolve a wooden
yeah,
structure.
yeah.
And I mean, when the more did a lot of research on this, trying to find a solution, and it's heartbreaking because the queen termite can lay about 30,000 eggs a day. And apparently the workers, when they're under threat, and this is what's really heartbreaking, when they're under threat, they bang their heads against they have these earth tubes, the earth canals that they build. They bang their heads against the the structure so that the vibration warns the others down that there is a threat coming. I mean, we are talking about sentient beings trying to live like us.
If I listen to you anymore, I might be as extreme as you are, so I'm not going to. Right? But I get it, Ramya, because see, it's selective blindness, no? This is
Yeah.
where Amitav Ghosh says we live because we are selectively blind, right? And also there's this in it. Um, excuse my noise factor today. It's quite a disturbing day. Ramya, what we see now when I speak about Ditwa and the floods, it sounds a bit crazy because right now Sri Lanka is having such a hot drought spell, right? So we have forgotten now that these are things that we need to always keep in mind. Act now. But we keep waiting till a disaster strikes to wonder, oh my God, what happened? So this kind of forgetting, this ability to forget, the ability to be selectively blind, I think is what makes human beings survive, right? I know you're a vegetarian. For example, if we
No,
see
I'm
how,
not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegetarian.
okay, I thought you were at some point.
Where I go through my phases.
Okay, sorry. Um, if we see the way meat is produced, I don't think any one of us will be meat eaters, right? So the selective blindness, which I think Amitav Ghosh calls the great derangement, is what makes human beings actually survive. And that's the sad part. You and I both don't have answers to any of these, right? Because we both know this concept of alpecha. We know that, but then we both have children. How do we teach them that, and whether they would fit in? So all of these are not questions that either of us have answers to, but I think posing the question is important, and that's what you do through your poetry, right? So now, just for me to get back into this one thing, to kind of summarize you as a poet, Ramya, one thing that was clear to me every time I read you is your great love for this land that is an island, right? And even your title says there is an island in the bone. Like this island is in our very bones, the blood, bones, everything. And requisites the love for the philosophy that we follow, for this religion. Would you like to say something about that?
Um, I guess the first book was very much rooted in Sri Lanka. The last book, this current book, Requisites, is more about not just Sri Lanka, but all of us as inhabitants of this planet Earth, because ultimately boundaries become irrelevant, because nature knows no boundaries. We are all on one planet, and if something goes wrong in one place, a butterfly flutters, then there is cyclone somewhere else. So we are all connected. So now I would say from kind of a very provincial, the last book moves to a much more wider kind of resonance with the world out there, especially nature.
And specifically Sri Lankan part. Now, I know Shyam Selvadure put together this anthology of Sri Lankan writers, and he ends the whole book with one of your poems, right? And that's one of my favorite, where the epilogue, his whole epilogue is actually your poem, right? And it's about the title is The Moon at Sinugala, and it's very detailed, like very embodied poem. What you feel about getting into, and then you say there's this ball of light of with the moon that you hold it and you come back. And the last line, which finishes this whole book, is this is the way home. The way home. This is home for you, right? And when you write in English, this kind of rootedness of a particular place, physical place, in the rivers, in the moon, in the reeds, in the grass, I find it very strengthening, very heartening, right? Where does this love come from? Are you a traveler? Do you travel? Where is your how? I mean, that's kind of a stupid question. We all love our land, but where does your physical connection come from, Ramya? Are you a very in like traveler? Like, do you travel much around this country?
Um, I have really traveled only enough around this country. This is probably, and been to the wilderness here, which is probably why my poems are based in forests or outside outdoors here. That doesn't mean I could travel to like the outer shores or the Hebrides and love that landscape. Any landscape that's natural and part of nature, I would just be at home there. And that is what I mean by this is the way home. Way home is a place where you're in tune with yourself, because once you're linked to a sense of that larger uh, world, the universe around you, I think there is a sense of connection, belonging, and peace. And that's immensely healing for human beings, I think. Human beings need that.
This is why I think, Ramya, I think the English speaking world knows who you are. And we bred you and I don't know, you found succor in your poetry, I think. And I do really wish that more people in Sri Lanka could read you. And one of the reasons the Sinhala readership cannot, or the Tamil readership cannot, is you have not been translated. And I think to translate you, it will take an extraordinary translator to carry the beauty across from one language to the other, which is why I haven't tried it. But I do hope some of your, like for example, in your first book, the English is quite simple. People do understand, though your ideas are not complex. So I hope anyone who listens to this interview that the two of us did, listen to the Sinhala one also, try to get her poetry, try and read it. Ramyan, I know this was published in London, right? So Sarasavya has got this down. So it's available here, though I think it's a bit expensive, but it's available here. Is this available in shops, Ramya? Is
No,
this one
Madhu, that is out
out
of
of
print.
out
And
of
I
print?
apologize that this book is so expensive, which is one of the reasons that I haven't really promoted this last book at all in Sri Lanka, because I just can't ask people to spend that amount of money on a book of
Yeah,
poems.
because you convert it, it's published
Yeah,
in London, and when you convert it, it becomes very expensive.
it's exorbitant.
But
Yeah.
you are also one of the most self, you take a step back. I have hardly seen you publicizing yourself, Ramya. And that technically even annoys me because many people don't know it. Forget the cost. I don't think you self publicize at all.
But
So
I do, Madhu. I put things on my Facebook and my Instagram.
maybe, maybe comparatively, yes, to me. Why
And
is this not available?
it's out of print.
Right. And this is hardcover. So,
Yes, that was a labor of love. It was a
yeah,
true craftsmanship. It was hand
absolutely.
bound by this
Beautiful.
retired gentleman who was a librarian at the
Right.
Muratua Library. He hand bound it. There was a woodcut. That's a woodcut stamp. Yeah,
Absolutely.
but
So,
about translating, Madhu, I'd be more than happy. The problem is not the language. I think the difficulty to get into the poems is the number of references. There are like references and metaphors that you have to get a grip on. So, and anyone who wants to translate, I'll be happy to sit with them and kind of talk those through.
I hope there will be somebody with that kind of talent, and I can imagine a few people who might be able to, because I think it's very worth it, Ram. I really think we should be reading you more because you speak not just about, it's not just, I mean, nothing is just poetry, but the issues you touch, about how we have to be aware, and how freedom can be maintained, or how we can get our own freedom by not accumulating, but by actually letting go and seeing what's available for us free of charge. And this kind of thinking will help not just Sri Lankans, but anyone in the world. So I'm delighted, Ramya, that you are published in London, because that was one way of showing another way of thinking. This naturally comes down to us through our heritage, but you took it out. And also, congratulations. I heard your Gratian Award winning novel was published in India by Penguin, which means it's going to go international. It's of immense pride, Ramya, that someone like you is among us. Forgive me, I think it's too quietly, yes. But I'm very honored that you came and spoke to me because I know you don't come for interviews either. So this was me pulling a fast one on you, saying you're my friend, you have to come, and you actually stood by that. So thank you very much. I'm extremely honored that you came, that you shared your ideas, both in Sinhala and in English. Though you're a writer of English, you also spoke in Sinhala, and I'm really very grateful.
Thank you, Madhu. I feel very honored, and I feel you painted a picture of me which can easily be contested because I am out there. I do go for literary festivals and I do go for interviews. So I'm not some kind of recluse in a nice way, the way you painted is a lovely way of being, but I really don't think I am living that way. I
You
would
do
love
go for literary festivals.
I
I
would love
agree with
to.
that.
No,
Yes.
but interviews, anything I do go. So I would, although I would love to be the person that you describe me to be, I really don't think I am that. I don't think I'm living that way. But I think really you have done more through this channel and the work you do with libraries for children to make a real difference in people's lives in a way that I guess a book of poems could never do, you know? So
But
I
the
the
thing with
respect is
you, the thing
mutual.
with you is in career wise, you're in an NGO that actually goes to villagers and physically helps them. So for
Yeah.
me, when I speak with writers, I also speak with people who I know don't restrict themselves to just expression, but turn it into, real physical stuff. And one of the things, and when you wrote, Water for Kings, and I translated one of your poems there, I know their hunger. I know they're thirsty. And not only do you know it, you try and make a difference there. So, and you're one of these people who never use your doctorate in anything, but I know you're also, academically at that level. So, yes, my opinion could be relative. I put 3, 4 posts a day on FB, but I'm glad that you're at least out there on FB. But the thing with literary festivals, Ramya, only a limited crowd comes there. So for me, which is one of the reasons I don't go. There's still there are people who might not know your name here, and
But
they
you know,
deserve to
Madhu,
know.
yeah, you know, Madhu, but what was sad and disappointing is some of these festivals I know opened up spaces for university students, especially free of charge, and they didn't go.
One of the reasons there is lack of knowledge, Ramya, and a sense that they don't really link to our lives, right?
Okay.
So it's that, but I think right now there's a literary festival where the whole thing is open, free of charge. I think
Yes,
there's a difference when
the
you,
planning one, yes.
yes, when you pick some things and say, for these you can come, there's still a little bit of hierarchy going on there.
Yeah,
But when
absolutely.
it's, so which, with your pride or whatever, you may not want to take it up.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not charity or pity is something that we need anyway,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But when it's
absolutely.
completely open, that's a different thing. But you can't hold things like that. As you say, we are all part of a system. We are all caught within that.
Yeah,
Publishing a book itself is to get into the capitalist system. You have to buy
yeah,
it with money,
absolutely.
right? So
Yeah.
none of us are actually out of that system, and none of us can preach to the other either. So we're all in it and all caught in it. And it's beautiful where you hear you say, maybe there is a way out, but that is not something that is easy for any one of us to take. And you say going upstream because of that.
Yes, which is exactly why I'm very careful to say that what I have written is fiction, right? I don't live that life.
Exactly.
I have not been able to live that life. I would love to live that life, but I can't see how I could live that life right now, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't want to be accused of kind of preaching and kind of
No,
it's not easy.
no. But then no one expects a writer to be autobiographical either. And this is the beauty of it, right? You've put out something which is superb for anyone like me who are looking at other ways of life, who are thinking this really cannot be it, right? We may not live it either, but we know, look, there are others who think like this. They are showing options. And at some point, we might be able to just push the line a bit more forward.
Yeah,
Maybe I don't need
absolutely.
new clothes. Maybe I
Yeah,
can keep recycling old ones,
yeah.
right?
And
So
that type of small thing we can do. That's the point, I think, you
that's
know.
the
That's
point.
the
That
yeah.
exactly. So when I read you and I realize, yes, I mean, figure out needle and thread. Okay, I'm 56. I still take my darning to my mother. Figure it out, right? And beautiful. You're questioning. The last one is a belt, and you ask, of all 8 things, why is a belt necessary? What does it hold? What's being held together, right? And your last line, we come to a place where nothing is important. Words, no talking, and you say no metaphor in a book that from beginning to end use metaphor for ideas. So you're actually stepping away from your expression also. So all this, I think this is why I think it's the impact is going to be for those who read this. the impact is going to be great, Ramya. Right? And this is why let's see, let's speak, let's talk about it. And I think your Sinhala is also good enough for you to translate it. Okay? Because it's like Jhumpa Lahiri learned Italian simply because she wanted to slow the process of creation.
Yeah.
Right? So what a fantastic, she learned a language to write her next novel because we get used to it and it's familiar to us. So if at all, if anyone can sit and translate this, it's you, and then I'll sit with you. But it's good to be you, right? So we'll see,
Thank you,
Ramya.
Madhu.
Yeah, thank you so much again for this. It's been a pleasure as always speaking with you. Only thing we did this in public this time,
Thank
right?
you so much,
And
Madhu, for
very, very
inviting me.
grateful.
I feel
Yes.
really honored to be part of this series. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.